All right, you ready?
Whoa, 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 whoa. I haven't even had my coffee yet, Bobby. Whoa, here it is. It's right here in my hand. But it's not burning me because it's in a container. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bobby Paul's Nintendo Guru. If we ran Nintendo, they'd probably come up with a better name than ARMS because it's kind of dumb, but once you get to know it, it's really good. Let's do this podcast. Yeah!
Let's face it, as Nintendo fans, we are often left slightly disappointed and scratching our heads asking why. Where is our Super Mario Galaxy 3? Why isn't Metroid out yet? Bring back the Ice Climber, seriously, and what were you thinking with the Virtual Boy? Well, sit back as Sean Capri and Bobby Pauls do just that. That's right, this is If We Ran Nintendo. Now, cue the music, maestro.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 62 of If We Ran Nintendo. I am Bobby, the Nintendo Guru, joined by the greatest co-host in all of podcasting, Sean Capri. What is up, Sean?
Hi, Bobby. I forgot what episode it was, so I couldn't follow along in the video.
You can't follow along ever in the video. Just go back and watch it.
Do you mind just, doing the show? I'm gonna go back to bed.
No, Mr. Hyper 5 seconds ago. Now you lost all your wind?
No, I'm good. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just being whiny. Bobby, I missed you.
I miss you. Not really. We've been hanging out all day yesterday.
I know. We were apart for a few hours, so it's,
a little bit. Yeah.
Now we've got to come back together.
Dude, I went to bed at 1:30 last night, and
how was that?
I went up there and Tony was out cold. The dog was out cold, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta move these people over and stuff and get them situated so I can get into bed, and it's what the heck. But so we were playing a little Division yesterday.
Oh yeah, let's talk about this.
Let's talk about this.
A perfect experience. The greatness that is the PlayStation Network.
Yes, it was not good. It was, well, let's be honest. Let's be fair. It started out, we tried to play after we did a little bit of ARMS yesterday. We played a lot of ARMS together so far. And not together in the sense, but on Skype calls together. But we were playing ARMS, and then we were let's go play the Division. And dude, the lag was out of control.
Yeah, man.
There was literally a time where I ran over next to a barrel, a flaming barrel, a flame barrel, or an explodable barrel for cover. And next thing I know, it blows up 2 seconds later. I'm like, what the heck? And you're like, oh, I shot that
I shot
30
that a
seconds
moment ago.
Yeah, I shot that 30 seconds ago. And I'm like, what the hell, man? And then you would literally jump up, shoot somebody, unload your gun on them. And then they would stand there, take a step and fall over. And then you would jump up to shoot and your gun's not shooting. And you're just standing there. And then all of a sudden it just opens up, and it was so bad. So then,
or you think you're in the clear, and next thing you know, a guy with a baseball bat just teleports beside you and smacks you upside the head.
Yeah, it was a mess.
When you even call it lag, I don't even know if it counts as lag. The thing was broken.
Yeah,
it was so bad. And I should have gone over on Xbox to see if it was happening over there as well. But the good news is it was momentary. Yeah, it was only for a little bit.
Yeah, because then we went back later on that night, and we had a great time. I think we played from 8 o'clock till 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 hours.
Man, it was good times.
It was long, man. It was long.
We agreed that the reason we wanted to talk about it today on this show was because if anything even remotely close to this ever happened on Nintendo, my God, you would hear it.
Yeah.
You would hear it forever, and it would drive people away from the system, and it would just reinforce this notion that Nintendo doesn't know how to do online. But I gotta say, man, they don't have all the bells and whistles on Nintendo, but so far on Switch and for a very long time on the Wii U, anytime I wanted to play a game, I could play it.
Yeah.
And I got in quickly, and the game was smooth. And even with the Division we had a good time last night, eventually. Overwatch, I'm going to throw some shade over to Overwatch as well. I wait forever sometimes to play a game. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we gotta evaluate this stuff with a equal playing level. That doesn't make sense. I haven't had my coffee yet, but it's all gotta be the same. It's all gotta be fair.
Let's real quick.
A little whiny about it.
Let's. Do you want to discuss ARMS or you want to do shout outs first?
Yeah, let's do ARMS. Let's do ARMS.
So while we're on this, like, Global Test Punch started Friday. You and I jumped in. We played some Global Test Punch on Friday night. Then yesterday morning I played all 3 rounds yesterday, and then I played again this morning. When you talk about, like, 0 issues, it's a beta. And, like, and it's a stress test. Nintendo is funneling everybody in at the same time to see how much stress they could put on their servers and will it withstand. And
yep.
I had, it's funny because I heard a lot of complaints, people saying, like, they couldn't connect, and I had 0 issues.
But this
Zero
is the thing,
issues.
Bobby. Even if some people had some issues, they just really like attention.
Yeah.
That's what we're finding on some of these online communities. Is people just really like to put out a post that gets a lot of likes or a lot of comments. They like to stir up crap.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of it.
No, I mean,
there's not. Even if you got kicked out for a moment, if there's a communication error, you're back in within seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I really haven't talked to anybody who was out for the entire time. It was maybe just a quick second.
And to be fair, that's for this. That's for Splatoon 2 when we did the Global Test Fire, and for Mario Kart.
Yep.
We had what do we have? A gigantic super indie podcast group, like 20 different podcasts, all with their fan bases coming in and playing for the whole weekend, the first weekend of Mario Kart, and nobody had an issue.
Right.
At least nobody reported it to me. If there was issues, nobody said to me, like, oh, I could never get in, or, like, we played for hours, and I never got kicked out of matches. It blows my mind, man. It really does. But that said, let's kick this episode off like we do each and every episode with our shout-outs.
Outs, yes. Geek outs. I can't wait to do Geek Out with you.
So I got 2 shout-outs. One is our boy Seamus Mullins.
Yes!
So yesterday, during the second the third Global Test Punch, Sean and I were just jumping on Skype calls all day long, and he brings Seamus along, and Seamus jumps in, and we start chatting. It was so much fun, dude. So much fun to just... it's the first time I actually spoke to him face to face, you know what I mean? Like,
such a good dude.
Yeah. So awesome, dude. He is amazing. If you don't follow Seamus, check him out. Twitter, at Seamus Mullins, right?
Yep.
I'll leave his info in the description below so you guys can follow him and stuff. But he does a lot of good stuff. He does reviews. He does it all, man. And he's been on Sean's podcast a few times. We're actually going to get him on my podcasts as well. We discussed that a little bit yesterday. And this kid is, and I call him a kid. He's not a kid, but he is just.
He's 22. He's a generation younger than us. Maybe even 2 generations.
Anybody that's like that much younger than me, I call a kid. And
he's so young they don't have a name for that yet. Like they're millennial. I don't even know if he's a millennial. It's Bobby. I don't even know how that works.
Uber millennial. We'll call
it. Millennial +1.
Yeah.
He'll be on We the Gamercast doing third-party predictions for E3. I'll actually be up already at this point.
Yeah.
But it just went live on Monday. And yeah, man, he's a real deal. Like, he is such a genuine dude, and I'm obviously a big fan of his, but he's a good friend. And I'm so lucky to have gotten to know him over the last little while. So great shout out.
And then this other shout out is kind of different, and I don't even know if this guy's ever going to hear this shout out. Depends on whether he listens to the podcast or not. But he's not a podcast listener. So I was playing ARMS yesterday, and I was fighting this guy at Meme Lord Nord Jr.
Yeah.
He sends me a tweet and says, "Nintendo Gurus, thanks for the fun hour, man," and a picture of he beat me. So he, it says winner and stuff. But I guess my name on there is Nintendo Guru. So he must have just searched me after that, found me, subscribed to my YouTube channel after that.
That's
and all that
awesome.
stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome, man. So it was a lot of fun to play, with people in ARMS. I just, man, we'll get into it.
When was the last time like you saw somebody online and went like, you know what, I need to find that person on Twitter?
I know.
And then you went like, that is crazy to me. And even that, if we ran Nintendo, that would be really cool if you had your social media linked to your Nintendo profile and like you meet somebody up, you want to go follow. Like that should be a thing.
Yeah.
That
I
totally
agree.
should just be like, if you wanted it to be like, you could obviously not have
block
it
it or whatever. Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I agree. How about you? Got any shout outs?
Well, I want to give a shout out to Luke Lore at MLS Reserves.
Yes.
He sent us a very nice message. I don't really want to get into the specific message because we still have stuff to discuss.
Yes.
But very, very nice support. I just wanted to give a quick thank you. I know Bobby and I share the sentiment as well as the Nintendo dads and the Mega dads. So very nice to get such encouragement from you, Luke. I appreciate it. And my last shout out is to Dave Moore. He's a good friend of ours. We don't typically do the shout outs with sort of like the circle of podcasters that we have, but I want to give Dave a shout out. Number one, he's working his butt off, working on Day Space and moving everything over there. And number two, if you ever get a chance to play ARMS with Dave, you need to do this because it is the greatest. And if Dave, you need to stream it. If I don't know, you got to figure something out to get this thing working. Because I was playing, I had Skype going with Johnny Casino and Dave and a couple other people, Jeff from Character Crunch, and Dave. I forgot that Dave was playing with motion controls.
Yeah.
And so I just thought he was like excited about something. Like the camera was kind of off; he wasn't totally centered. So I just see him like kind of waving his arms up over his head and everything. And I'm like, what are you so pumped about? And then I forgot he's playing motion control.
He's the only one that was playing motion control.
Dude,
he's like flailing all over the place. I'm like, that alone tells me I don't want to play motion controls.
So it sounds like I'm making fun, but I give him a shout out because Dave Moore makes me smile. Yeah. Like he warms my heart. He's a great dude, and I hope this makes him laugh a little bit because I love his laugh as well. So shout out to Dave Moore and shout out to ARMS. ARMS is the real deal, Bobby. Yeah, I have been not a fan of the way, and I still hold true that it doesn't show well. Agreed. I don't think the gameplay shows very well. I'm actually surprised that they haven't really shown like their typical Nintendo style of having the person in front of the screen and playing it that way. But my God, this is the real deal. And I don't know if you follow this person Stealth at Stealth3_. They were following this person was, I don't even know if it's a he or she actually. They're following Amazon's pre-order or Amazon's list of like the top 10 bestsellers in video games. Yeah. And ARMS shot up to number 5 behind Sony PlayStation Store $20 gift card, $10 gift card, $50 gift card, $100 gift card, and then it's ARMS.
That's crazy.
That's what's happening in video games on Amazon, man.
It's amazing. It's amazing because I know that we mentioned this after we did the Splatoon Global Test Fire. I know that we mentioned like ARMS needs to do this as well, and they did it. And man, it just I pre-ordered it. But I was still hesitant. And the reason why I pre-ordered it was this. I felt like what Nintendo did for me with Splatoon warranted me buying ARMS without trying it. They earned enough faith in me with a new IP that I was like, I'm willing to give this a shot. I like the character designs. I've always liked the character designs. Love the art style. Like everything. I was hesitant because I'm not a huge fighting game fan. But I love this game, man. We played, 2 matches, I think? And both of us were like, we're buying it. Day one. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, this is a have to own, have to buy game. And it's so much fun. I know people are kind of, I said this, I think I said it to Toby yesterday on the Geekcast, but I just basically was like, look, it's a love it or hate it game. Either you love the game or you don't like it. And that's kind of the reviews I've been seeing. Not many people are like in the middle of the road that I've seen. I've either seen people are in love with the game or just don't like the game. And I feel like you need to try the game in multiple facets of it. Like you need to play in motion control. If you don't like motion controls, switch over to Pro Controller. I knew I wasn't going to like motion controls, so I didn't even try them. I just went straight to the Pro Controller and fell in love immediately. Yeah. I will try motion controls because I want to see how
both. I started with motion controls.
How was the HD Rumble in it?
Honestly, I didn't even notice.
You didn't even notice it? Okay.
No. I mean, maybe it's good, but That's the thing about HD Rumble is that you sort of have to tell somebody that, at least I think you do, because otherwise it's just we've been so used to force feedback forever that I don't know, like even with Halo and with Forza, because the Xbox controller has separate rumbles in each trigger. So like there's a part in Halo 5 where you're in like kind of like a mech, and when he stomps, the left boot, then the left trigger shakes. And with Forza, when you kind of go over the rumble strips on the side, left or right will rumble. But I wouldn't have noticed that if I didn't know, like if I didn't read about it, if I wasn't such a nerd about it. So I don't know. I have to double check. And I think motion controls are fun if you know that you're playing another person who's also playing motion controls. Like they should have a mode of motion controls only or something like that. But if I'm playing you and you've got a pro controller, I'm always going to be thinking, I can't be as quick as Bobby right now because I can't throw my fist fast. Well, I don't. At least in my brain, that's the way it works.
Yeah,
but now that I'm saying it out loud, like I can't.
Here's the thing that I've noticed with this game. It's not a matter of who throws punches faster.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Because you can throw a punch and the guy's on the ground and the arm goes out and then you have to wait for the arm to retract, and it's not a flail your arms around type of game. Like I feel like you're not going to win that way. It's not Wii Sports Boxing where you just keep throwing punches and go.
But it's not even like from one punch to the next. It's just when I intend on throwing a punch, how quickly can I do it? And I still think there's a bit of a delay. Like my whole wrist can't move as quickly as my fingers can pull the triggers.
Of course, yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that. In terms of, I've also heard like a lot of mixed reviews, and it was interesting. I was talking to Josh Stapleton last night, which is, that's why I'm so tired today, Bobby. I was up all night just commiserating with Mr. Stapleton. And he was saying that he is not a fan of the volleyball mode, and he is a fan for the 3-for-all mode, and which is hilarious because I was talking all day and people loving volleyball and not liking the 3-for-all. And I think it's super interesting. Just this is a very small sample size as well, but it seems like there is at least a few things for everybody. Yeah. I think the gameplay is solid enough, and then the different gameplay modes, there's going to be something for you, hopefully. But I found it super interesting because all day I heard people loving volleyball, being very surprised by volleyball, and hating the 3-for-all because of the 2-on-1 situations that can happen. I love it all. I'm actually surprised. I like every single game mode, but I can totally understand why some people might like some over the other. And the other thing that I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about is the level design. Is a huge winner in this game for me. Like even just having like that staircase level, just having, or even the one where it's like a hallway with the pillars, the breakable pillars, the glass pillars in there. Man, fighting games don't do this well enough, and you don't really get this style of game too often where you can throw in a different setting and it changes things up. But between the level design and the different game modes, this beta, this test punch, is already done way more for me, and I think a lot of people, than the Splatoon thing did. Yeah. Like the Splatoon only gave you one mode. Yeah. And so very quickly, and especially over the course of an hour or multiple hours throughout the test fire, you kind of got the idea, like, I think I've experienced the whole thing and I don't know if I need more. Yeah. Yeah. This is the opposite. We're getting quite a bit. We know more is coming. Yeah. Like more has been teased. They have refined the formula from Splatoon so well. I think Nintendo deserves a lot of credit for it.
The one thing that gets me really super excited about Nintendo right now is we're in this weird area with Nintendo where the old guard is starting to retire soon, and you're seeing what the new guard is rising up to do. And between Zelda, I'm curious to see what they do with Mario, Splatoon, now ARMS. I think Nintendo's future is very bright, and I don't think that people should be worried about, like, what happens when Miyamoto leaves? What happens when Aonuma leaves? What happens when Sakurai leaves? Like, these guys are the guys that were trained by Miyamoto and Aonuma and all these different people, and it's like, we're okay. Like, you're seeing what the future is going to bring, and it's very creative. Like, they took a fighting game and moved it to a whole other level. You know, they took a first-person shooter or a shooter game and moved it to a different level. They took an open-world game, changed the game, man. It's what they're doing is very good right now, and they're nailing it on all cylinders. I'm loving it right now. I really am. As a Nintendo fan, as just a fan of gaming, like, it's just nice to see the innovative side of Nintendo starting to pop out a little bit and showing, like, hey, we haven't gone nowhere. We can change the game any blink of an eye, you know.
Yeah, the thing about Nintendo is that they operate on a very small margin of error, right? So if they get it right, like it's bang on, and holy crap, is it amazing. But if they're slightly off, you just fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. And I think that they're hitting it and treating. We're seeing Nintendo operate now, I think, like they were with the Super Nintendo, or even actually the NES is really what I'm reminded of, because they're being very careful with their inventory stock, with their messaging stock. As I've talked about, they've got an inventory of messaging, and they're being very careful with their drip out. And it's not about, like with Sony and with Microsoft, it's just a barrage of stuff. And so you don't have quite that narrow margin of error, because you're so diversified. But with Nintendo, they're shooting for the stars, and they're really swinging for it. And if they hit it, it's a home run. But if they miss, they look kind of silly.
Exactly.
They basically look like me playing baseball. Because I don't even know how to play.
As you wear
They're 4 bases, right?
As you wear an Oakland A's hat. It's I like that.
It's my university colors, and I went to the University of Alberta, the U of A, so there's a little tie-in there.
Is that what that is?
That's
not what that means. Just so you know.
It's the Albertas.
Okay.
This is the Albertas, Bobby.
It's the A's, the Athletics. Anyway, so
me too.
First topic. If we ran Nintendo, you know what? Hold on. I forgot one shout out.
What a teaser!
I know. Before we jump into this, because I have to bring this one up because of the story. So, my buddy Nick, Next Level Games. I went over there, right? So I because I told you I was going to tell you this yesterday, and I didn't tell you. That's why it just popped up on me. First thing is, he said to me yesterday, or he said to me as I was leaving the store, he's like, I listened to If We Ran Nintendo, and the past couple If We Ran Nintendos haven't really been If We Ran Nintendo topics, so you need to fix that. So I have 2 topics here today, but that's what that refreshed my memory.
Okay, we'll fix it.
But so I go in the store, and we're talking, and he's like, he's been watching the shows, and he's like, I started listening after you and Sean fought. And I was like, okay. And he's like, so I constantly, like, I'll hear these little things about you and Sean fighting. And he goes, and I kind of thought, like, this Sean, man, he must be a dick. You know what I mean? And I was like, no. And he goes, well,
I knew that's what was going to happen.
But no, he goes, but wait a minute. He goes, but then I listened to him, and I go, this isn't a bad guy. This is a good guy. I like this guy. Like, what is going on here? And I was like, look. And I explained the whole story of what happened and all that. And he was like, I got it. And I was like, you really should go back and watch it, though. I think it's kind of funny. And now looking back, it's easy to laugh at it. In the heat of it all, it wasn't funny at all. But
look, I'm sure he's not the only one.
I know.
I'm sure most people are like, oh yeah, they did fight. I hate this Sean guy. He's all Canadian. He's upsetting Bobby, my friend, the Nintendo guru. Who does he think he is standing up to the Nintendo guru?
Stop it. No. But he also, here's the other thing that he did.
This happens in my real life all the time, Bobby. Like, I think I'm a pretty nice guy. I think I'm pretty positive. And if I even, like, show a shred of disagreement, Sean's an asshole.
The problem is that you're Canadian. And people have this high expectation.
Is that my problem?
Well, yeah, because people expect the Canadians to be nice. And
I mean, in my life, like other Canadians.
I'm just telling you. It's the way you're supposed to be. You're always supposed to be.
I hide myself to play video games.
You're supposed to say a boot, eat maple syrup, say A, and be nice. That's what you're supposed to do.
So I'm too poor to eat maple syrup. That shit's very expensive. I'm working on the.
Wait, how is that so expensive up there?
It is. It's expensive.
That's strange, man.
This is a vast land that we have to transport this.
Maybe I'll ship some up to you. It'd probably be cheaper if I shipped it to you.
Give me some American Canadian bacon too while you're at it.
Okay. Will do. But the last thing he did was, so you know how I'm always bagging on Kirby, right? I'm not a fan of Kirby.
The best thing, just really quick, the best would be if we discuss this until the end of the show, and then we don't have time for topics.
He would lose it. Although we're talking about him right now, so he's fine. Yeah, he's you know. But the funny thing is like
rush for 20 minutes again.
So you know how I'm always bagging on Kirby. He gave me Kirby Triple Deluxe for the 3DS. He went out and bought it for me because he knew I was coming in the store, and he gave it to me to play. So he's like, you gotta play it, man. I want to know. I'm like, I'll play it. I'll try it.
So did you play it?
No, not yet.
Have you even fired up your 3DS?
Not yet, no. It's sitting over there charging still. I'll jump on this week. I'm going to take it to work with me tomorrow. I'm going to try it. So anyway, if we ran Nintendo, Sean, well, the reason we're here, which of Nintendo's controllers would we have just kept for good and slowly just added on small adjustments along the way? I.e., Sony and Xbox controllers haven't changed a lot over time, just additions of like tech. So when you look at the original Xbox controller against the Xbox One controller, there's not much difference. It's very parallel in terms. The only thing, like, they'll add rumble to it, or they'll add like analog sticks or whatever, like, you know. And same thing with Sony. When you look at the PlayStation controllers, other than like they had the original cord, you know, and then they added analog sticks over time, and then they added on the rumble and all that stuff. Like, it's the same controller, basically. There's not much change. So when I thought about it, I go, well, that's the one thing Nintendo's never done. They've never had, other than the GameCube controller recently because of the Smash fans, they've never kept a controller over time.
Pro controllers are kind of close, but that's kind of it. Yeah,
well, that's the first time they went from Pro controller from the Wii U to now the Pro controller for the Switch. They're very close.
But I only say that as an aside because it's not the console controller. Like, that's not the thing that comes in the box. It's an accessory. Yeah,
and I feel like, so for me, my favorite controller that Nintendo ever put out was the Super Nintendo. I felt like that at the time was basically what we're talking. You had the original Nintendo controller, and then they did a small advancement. They put the curve on it. They put the shoulder buttons on there. They added 2 more buttons, you know, the X and Y button to it. I felt like it was kind of a push from what the original Nintendo controller was. It was more contour in your hands. But then when they went to the Nintendo 64 controller, they just threw it out the window. It just went totally, you know, nuts with the way the design was. The GameCube started to kind of bring it back in, you know what I mean? But then when you went to the Wii, obviously the nunchuck and the Wiimote totally was different. But again, the Pro controller for that was very similar to a Super Nintendo controller. So I would think, in my mind, I would probably say that, like, the Super Nintendo would be the one that I would have kept in theory and slowly progressed it. Because I feel, and this is just me personally, and I want your opinion after this, but I feel like, to me, because that's my favorite controller, that's probably the one I would have advanced along with. Now, when I look at a Pro controller now, I look at it and I go, well, that could technically be a Super Nintendo controller, just with the grips coming down on it. Because that's basically what, if you look at it, so if you look at the Super Nintendo, and then you look at the Wii Pro controller, there was actually a Wii Pro controller, like, something that had, like, grips on it as well. Like, there was one that you could buy that you could set it into big grips. And I think that's where they kind of moved from there. But for me personally, I would have gone with the Wii or the Super Nintendo controller and just advance from there. What about you?
By part of your discussion, like, that would basically be saying that it's the NES controller. Like, you've already kind of tied those two, so that's kind of like it's the original that would have kind of carried on.
And if you remember, at the end of the Nintendo life cycle, they came out with a top-loading Nintendo. And if you look it up on eBay, they typically call it the dog bone Nintendo console, because the controller looked very similar to a dog bone, which looked very similar to a Super Nintendo controller. It was very, you know, parallel to the two. So it was like they took that design. So I agree, it's basically starting from the Nintendo controller, slowly adding on slight adjustments, not these massive adjustments.
Well, we have to remember why the massive adjustment happened and why Sony and Xbox are in a totally different place in terms of carrying their design forward. And it's because Sony, like, the PlayStation came out at the advent of 3D gaming, so which required a different type of controller. So I think that it's weird. Like, my initial thought was that, okay, well, that means NES and SNES are out because we need to start from, or at least be able to translate over into a controller that can handle 3D. But I actually kind of like your argument. I wasn't thinking that at first. I was thinking maybe starting somewhere around the GameCube, which is, it's a fan favorite. I just don't know about the giant buttons.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that has any life outside of that single console. But maybe that's part of the discussion here is like, is there a way to kind of morph that into something that is a little bit basically, I think the conversation comes down to how do we get Nintendo to have like a standardized controller that works across all systems, all games. And if we ran Nintendo, we likely wouldn't do this. I think really like it's more about satisfying gamers a little bit of OCD and wanting everything to be the same from one to the next and getting that comfort a little bit. But if we ran Nintendo, like if I ran Nintendo, I wouldn't do that. I think what they've landed on with the Pro Controller is actually the correct solution, which is the console that you're playing on comes with a controller that is unique probably to that system, but you can always buy another controller if that's your preference. But a lot of the games are designed for or around those controllers. So I actually don't know if it's even possible, because not only have the games changed from one system to the next, but the way we interact with the games has changed so drastically that you really couldn't have that small iteration, because Nintendo just jumps all over the place. So this is I'm coming with 100 reasons why we couldn't do it, but I think ultimately, I actually agree with you where I wouldn't have originally, that the Super Nintendo kind of offers the most standard, the best probably starting place. I think it's actually the best controller for the system it was built on. I think it felt best. It had the best D-pad. I played a whole bunch of fighting games on that one. It felt great with just the right number of buttons and that little. I don't know if you play this or if you squeeze it just right, or if you're playing Super Mario World and you're trying to like get him to run and make that jump right at the last second, and the controller kind of creaks a little bit, like you're just it's got a little bend to it. I feel like that one felt the best. And for many people, at least our age, when they think of Nintendo controller, Super Nintendo, I think pops up. A lot of people go to the GameCube as well, but for me, Super Nintendo has that nice little flat line to grow from. It makes the most sense.
Because for me, when I think about it, I go, if they would have taken the Super Nintendo controller and pushed it along to the N64, and basically took the N64 controller without the claw, the middle section, I think it would have been a better controller. That's a weird looking controller when you look at it. And it's not it's not a favorite of anybody. Nobody ever talks about it in terms of like, I wish I could have that controller back. I think if they would have eliminated that center, moved the D-pad down just a little bit, and put the analog stick over top of it, because you really didn't use the analog stick other than Mario and Zelda,
GoldenEye, and Turok.
But there wasn't a lot of them. There wasn't a lot of games that used it.
I actually disagree with that.
When I played a lot of games, like when I played No Mercy, stuff like that, like I didn't use that analog stick.
Yeah, if there was an option, but there was a lot of first-person shooters that used that.
Yeah.
Pilot Wings, even the third-person stuff. But I think a lot of that was not crammed in, but it was Nintendo trying to show you this is the use for it. But you can always go back and use the D-pad. So I feel like if they would have putting it in the middle, kind of to me made it feel out of place. Like you should use it. It was reflective of nobody knowing what to do with 3D gaming at the time. Like not only the game itself and camera controls and everything like that, just didn't know how to make the game work, and they didn't know how to allow players to control it. Like we eventually switched the left hand or the right hand controls in the next generation, which is crazy. And I also think it's strange that Nintendo ended up having that design, because that felt very much, it was supposed to feel like a gun. Like the trigger behind it was supposed to feel like you were firing a gun. And Nintendo walks that line very carefully of giving you a gun for Duck Hunt, which looks like a blast. It's a blaster, but they're family friendly. Like they're kind of hiding away from violence. So it's a strange thing. So I think that the 64 controller is just more so a reflection of nobody knowing what to do with 3D. And then, you have to go retroactively to actually fix that.
But then, and where I'm getting at is like, but then when you looked at the GameCube, I feel like the GameCube really, other than them giant weird buttons, really could have been the Nintendo 64 controller when you look at it. Like that could
the C stick,
that could have been ultimately what they were looking at and saying like, because here's the thing, the Nintendo 64 was really built around Mario 64. like a lot of developers say it was a very difficult system to work on and make games for. So
like they launched with 2 games. They weren't planning on making anything after that.
It feels like
for the 2 games.
It feels like it, right? It feels like it ultimately. Like, so when I look at it, I go, okay. But when the GameCube comes out, I feel like the GameCube controller is very comfortable. I'm not going to take away from that. I don't like the super small D-pad. I feel like that was really weird and out of place.
Yeah, I actually actively stay away from it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. But the buttons, like I said, the buttons are really huge. But they did have a lot of, like, there was a real comfort to it. When people talk about the Wii, and they talk about, like, oh, well, people had to have the GameCube controller come over to play Smash and stuff like that. Like, I get it. Like, there was really no controller that you wanted to play Smash with on the Wii itself. Like, it just, you didn't want to play with Nunchuck and Wiimote. Like, it just felt weird, and you wanted a real controller. You wanted something to, like a fighting stick, per se. So I get that whole, like, we have to have the game controller. Now, I didn't understand why people had to have the GameCube controller come back for Wii U, other than the fact of, like, comfort factor, like, you're used to it now. But, like, it really made no sense to me, personally, because I felt like the Wii U Pro Controller was amazing. Like, obviously I don't want to play with the gamepad, but the Wii U Pro Controller was perfect, you know, and, so...
Well, the Pro Controller was the first time they finally figured out how to do an analog stick.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that's most surprising to me, is that Nintendo invented the D-pad, they perfected it, they had it, it was the best forever, and then it got kind of, with the 64 controller, got kind of weird, and then it got even weirder with the following controllers. Like, we're finally back to a good D-pad on the Pro Controller, I think.
Yeah.
But even still, like, I haven't played a fighting game on it, I haven't played Street Fighter on it yet, but it looks like it might tear up my thumbs a little bit. But Nintendo is surprising to me that they perfected the D-pad, they perfected Rumble, and now they've taken it to HD Rumble. But their analog sticks have been, to me, subpar.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a big deal. I think that's another reason why a lot of people have steered away from Nintendo, is because the device that they interact with is the analog stick, which is synonymous with modern gaming, just not as good.
Yeah.
And it's not even a matter of, like, do I prefer concave or convex kind of thumbsticks? It's just not even the way that it's not a 360-degree setting for that thumbstick to sit in for basically up until now with the Pro Controller. It's always been that, like, was it an octagon? I'm not even sure, but, like, it feels very strange. That always pushed people away.
Yeah.
So so when we look at trying to make it, like, iterate on a one controller, a lot of it has to be retroactive fitting for it, because we wouldn't do the same thing. Like, we wouldn't actually take the 64, any of the designs from the 64 controller and smash it into the Super Nintendo controller.
The only thing I would have done if I was going from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64 is I would have eliminated the middle.
Yes.
I would have moved the C-stick up above the D-pad, and I would have kept the grips on the sides.
So 64, like the C buttons?
The C buttons, I guess you would keep, because they kind of controlled the camera, like in Mario. But what I'm saying is I would have kept the grips on the sides. Like, when you look at the Super Nintendo, it's got the grips on the side and then that middle grip. I would have eliminated that middle grip. I would have moved the C-stick that sits above it up above the D-pad. And so
I got confused, because I always say C buttons and then C-stick is GameCube. But you're right. And it'd be funny to see. I'm sure there's 100 mock-ups, 100 different prototypes for the 64. I'd love to see when they finally landed on the 3-prong thing, because I'm sure it was 2 for the longest time, and then they finally saw this one and went, well, that's weird, so let's do that.
Yeah. Well, apparently, if my memory is right, my memory is correct, Miyamoto designed this controller.
Shocking.
He designed it because he wanted something specific for Mario. And the reason why he designed it was he felt like you could put your left hand in the middle and turn the controller a little bit and make it that way. And I hated playing that way. I was just so, it was strange. It was different. And don't get me wrong, I learned to play that way as time went on, but, like, it was just awkward. And I felt like if this C-stick or this analog stick is, like, the be-all, end-all, why is it focused in the middle of the controller? Like, it should be a center point to the left where your main... It felt like it was just kind of an afterthought. Like, it was like well, Miyamoto, we appreciate what you're doing here, but we don't know that this is going to work. So you need to keep the D-pad, which everybody knows, to the left, and have your regular controllers. And then this is the afterthought thing. Because if it didn't work with Mario, I'm pretty sure it never would have worked again. I don't think they would have pushed that hard with that for future games. It would have just went back to the D-pad and stuff. So, but because Mario 64 was such a huge success, it progressed with like Zelda and all that stuff to use that stick. But I feel like that's the one weird controller, like I said before. So I would have gone like Super Nintendo, I would have moved it over to that. Then I feel like GameCube, again, doesn't change much from a Super Nintendo other than that super small D-pad.
I think it looks like a closer cousin to the 64 controller, to be honest with you. Like,
really?
I think it's very, like those are born out of the same sort of brainstorm session.
Okay.
I'm looking at a Hori controller. I don't know if this is real or not. I'm not sure if anybody has seen this thing. It's a Hori gamepad for the 64, and it's just the two grips, and it's got the thumbstick on the left, and the D-pad's actually in the middle. Like, it looks like it's kind of very cramped. But it was interesting. I wanted to see if there's any like prototypes, but I found that it looks like a real third party, and it looks very similar in shape and proportion to Dreamcast, actually.
Okay.
So very, very interesting. Man,
so,
what a terrible controller.
So So you're okay. So ultimately,
I'm with you.
So you feel like So the Nintendo 64 would have been the one we probably would have eliminated from the mix. Kind of kept it close to the Super Nintendo across the board and just grown off of that, off the original stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most. It comes from a stable mind. It doesn't come from somebody who's out of their mind. Like, well, Miyamoto maybe is. I don't know. There's something with him. He does a good thumbs up. So stick with the Super Nintendo. It makes most sense to me.
Yeah,
Let you cough over there.
Yeah.
You're really quick with that little. I don't even know how you're doing that. How you're
muting yourself. Hit the mute button.
What mute button?
It's a mute button on Skype.
But usually I see a little thing that says you muted yourself, and there's nothing there.
I'm just good like that, man. I'm quick.
Oh, man.
Quick on the draw, man.
Quick on the draw, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's ultimately, if we ran Nintendo, that's what we would do. We would have kind of progressed off of the original one and kept moving forward. And I feel like where they're at now with the Pro Controller, I feel like the Pro Controller should be their resting place, like you say. We want you to play this way.
Nothing to do from here.
Yeah, we want to play this way, but you know what? Ultimately, the Pro Controller should follow every single system moving forward, because I feel like they've nailed it with this Pro Controller. This Pro Controller is right where they need to be. It's perfect. It really is.
Just give me a headphone jack. That's all I ask.
That would be for you, just for Sean. It'd be the night. Now, there's a lot of people out there that complain about that. And it actually, like, we were playing yesterday when we were playing the Division. My wireless headset, went down on me, and I actually just took my earbuds and plugged it into the controller. And I was playing that way, and
very nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was like I didn't skip a beat, and so that's I agree. That's
where we're at.
Yeah,
on Nintendo.
So, final topic. If we ran Nintendo, how would we have handled voice chat in Splatoon 2? Now, obviously, Splatoon 2 is not out yet, but it's already come out that it's going to be like a party chat. You can only chat with your friends. You can't talk to random people. So my question to you is, first off, and this is just Bobby and Sean talking. This isn't a matter of this isn't a matter of like we're running a company at this point.
Oh, okay.
What's your feeling?
Like, who else would be here?
What's your feeling with talking to strangers when you're playing video games?
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and talking back to the Division, like it's a possibility for you to kind of like wander off with random people, and I think there's proximity chat in there. Pretty sure, that's a thing. And I don't know, like I always feel I will always come back to everything should be an option. Yeah. Nintendo should never be the ones kind of like closing the gate on any of this stuff. If I want to be able to hear from strangers, I should be allowed to do that. But if maybe even as a default, just have that shut off. I gotta go turn that sort of thing in. This is all about messaging, Bobby. Yeah. There has to be a way. There has to be a way for Nintendo to spin this to make it a positive for them. Where, like when we say you can't talk to strangers, that's automatically a negative. The can't is a negative way of phrasing it. But when you say when you say something like, focus on your friends, or like be with your friends and your family, be with the ones closest to you. Like there has to be a way for them to find a line of messaging around the way that they handle voice chat that makes it sound better and focus on what you can do versus what you can't do, and what the experience will be like versus what the experience won't be like.
Yeah.
So that's where I come from. But again, like it ultimately comes down to the option for me. But like, can we all just like really evaluate ourselves and think, what are we really losing when we can't talk to strangers? And if it's easy enough to go, you know what, that's a good dude. Even we were talking with Arms yesterday, it would be great after a match to be able to like go over to the person, like if you're randomly set up with somebody, go over to a person, like give him a high five, or like send him a, like poke him like on Facebook. Just some of those like not quite chatting, but like some subtle innocent interactions that you can have with strangers just before jumping up to full on voice chat, I think would go a long way to, and maybe I can already hear people screaming at me, because that's sort of what we got with Mario Kart, where you could select in the lobby, you could select like a little blurb, a little something to say.
Yeah.
And that didn't really do it either. So I don't know. There should be a way to make friends though. And I think that's really what people are scared of missing, is that, online gaming is a place to meet people. It's a place to feel like you're not alone in the world and you're not the only person who cares so deeply about the game that you're playing. Nintendo should be a place where people can find each other and obsess over Nintendo games. And that's why people react so poorly to when they hear they can't do something on Nintendo that is so locked into the way that they want to interact with other fans.
So the exact messaging is this. There is no need for concern. The reason we...
Nobody panic!
Well,
everything is fine. Please disperse.
The reason we included voice chat is because we wanted users who already know each other to enjoy the game more deeply using a communication tool that linked to the game. Yep. That's from the producer, Nagami. Voice chat can only be used when playing with someone you know, such as private matchmaking. Voice chat with someone you don't know in a random matchmaking won't happen. So they aren't like going like, hey, you can't talk to strangers. Their messaging, I feel, is on par with where it needs to be. It's a matter of when you read the comments that come after that, the Nintendo community, the Nintendo fans, they're saying like, well, this is going to kill the lifespan of the game. Don't agree with that, because Splatoon 1 didn't have voice chat at all. No voice chat at all. Mm-hmm. And that game went for a couple of years before it finally died out. It's still going now. You could jump on right now. We could all play, and the lobbies would fill up. It's not even an issue.
I think about sometimes you'll see in some of these groups on Xbox and PlayStation, somebody playing like even a fighting game or some messaging, where after a match, you'll see somebody send a message to the other person and say like, you, whatever, there's a word out there that's going on. It's just terrible, terrible stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is the thing, and this is why it should be an option, should be locked away for like maybe a parental versus a kid record. You don't want any of that, whether it's voice or text, or like even what I was saying about before with having the ability to reach out very easily to the person you're playing with. I'm always thinking of the positive. I just realized that easily allows people to just go, you're shit at this game, and all these other horrible, horrible things that people say to each other. And you and I were talking about this yesterday. Nintendo is a family-first company, and that's really, it's just too bad that they have to have these safeguards in place to make sure that kids don't get exposed. And really, like, it's not even just kids. It's gaming in general. Like, even as a grown man, I actually prefer a place where I can't be called a C word or all these other things. Yeah. Nintendo really has our best interest in mind, but sometimes that protective approach comes across like, just get away from me. Let me live my life, Nintendo.
Well, the other thing, too, is we have to also remember is we're using a different way of voice chat. So the voice chat isn't baked into these games. The voice chat is based off of our mobile devices that we're utilizing, this mobile app that's coming out, which we don't know what it is yet.
I'm still in denial about it.
But we don't know what it is yet.
That's not caked into the console.
Yeah, so we don't know. Well, a lot of it is, too, like, when you take it on the go, like, is it going to put a drain on the system? Utilizing voice chat as well. Like, it already doesn't have a massive battery life as it is. This is only going to,
it's got a better battery life than my DualShock 4.
Well, that's not the point.
Got that
That's-
LED.
That's
like,
a different. I know.
illuminating my room for some reason.
I know. Every time I got killed yesterday, it was turning red, which was red.
Mhm.
It was red most of the game, but
I mean,
whatever.
it's cool. Let's be honest.
It is kind of cool, but so. But my thing is, this is like we're not really sure what this mobile app is going to be. We know that right now, like with this mobile app, we can set up matches and we can chat. It's a party chat type system. So basically, what they're doing is they're taking in my mind, the coolest feature of Sony PlayStation and throwing it at us. They're giving us a party chat type thing, because that's like me personally will not talk to people. I'll shut it off. Like when I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, I immediately shut it off. I don't want to hear these little kids screaming and all this. Like, I don't care to hear it. You know what I mean? But when I'm playing with Toby and them guys, we jump into a party chat and we all hang out and we all talk and we have a good time. So I like the fact of what they're giving us. The other thing that people aren't looking at that I feel like they need to look at is it's a step up from where it was. With Splatoon 1, when voice chat was asked about, they said, we don't want kids, we don't want adults cursing at each other and yelling at each other. And they use Call of Duty as the example. We don't want that type of community going on with this game. Totally respect that. Totally, I can respect that. And
I've experienced it firsthand, hearing some people just go at each other, and just some of the most heinous language. Yeah. And they are teenagers, and they're like even younger than nobody should be using that language, and it's especially inappropriate for the age that I was hearing. Yeah. Like, where did you learn to talk like that?
Exactly.
Like that kind of stuff.
So now for me, let's scale it back. That was how Bobby feels. That's how Sean feels. Now we're going to scale it back. If we ran Nintendo.
Okay, we're really getting to the purest form of the show today, aren't we?
Exactly. Right, how would we have handled the voice chat? Yeah. And I feel that they should have included the voice chat. If it all depends on how this mobile app works. I'm not sure exactly how it works. And this is something I wanted to ask you too. So when you're playing, because I don't play these games. I don't play shooter games typically. Mm-hmm. So if I'm playing Overwatch, right, and my team gets formed, and it's 4-on-4. Let's just say it's 4-on-4. Am I able to communicate solely with my team, or is everybody talking with each other and you can hear everybody talking?
You can do all of it.
Okay.
So it depends, and it gets a little confusing on the other systems, admittedly, because you can have like party chat or you can have in-game chat. And so party chat would be like yesterday we were in a party chat and we were talking. We could only hear each other. Yeah. But if we hadn't already created a party out like just within PlayStation, if we created a party within the game, then we're starting to like talk within the group. So and this is probably why Nintendo avoids it altogether, because I feel like there's a huge portion of people who get very confused, and more than people really talk about, because it's not really cool to say like I'm confused by this feature that I get with my console. Yeah. I think it's confusing a lot of people. The difference between party chat and in-game chat it's tough. Yeah. So Nintendo is onto something. I think they've clearly identified that something isn't quite right with the way that Xbox and PlayStation do it. That might be a controversial statement, but I just doing a lot of multiplayer gaming, trying to play with you and with Dave and a couple other people over the last little while. There is something wrong with it. Yeah. There's definitely something not quite right, and I hope that I see Nintendo starting from like from the beginning, from a very basic level, just like they're doing with their UI, not going all out. They're just like very, very basic, and they'll iterate upon that. I think they're doing the same with in-game chat. It's just not a very sexy thing to sell. It's not really like they're not exciting to talk about. Like, they'll eventually figure it out. Like when they do, it'll be great. But for now, we're lacking some features that we have in another place. But what I do like about the other systems is that if you are hearing something that another player saying and it's offensive, or you just like they have heavy breathing or something like that, very easy to just go in and mute that individual person. Yeah. Like those are the types of features. Nintendo just has to figure out a way to make the default so that you either just want to do your friend. Like if I ran Nintendo, I definitely would set the default that it's friends only. Yeah. You have to go in and allow for strangers. Yeah. And then I would actually eliminate the difference between like the console chat and the. I don't even know if I would
see.
Do
what
that.
Here's the thing that as we're talking, this is hitting me.
Yeah,
I feel like because it's a mobile app, they don't have the ability to go. Joe Schmo 2 are in a game with Sean and Bobby. We're going to sync them all up so they can talk. Because it's a mobile app. It's too separate. I don't think... Well, it's just like... Because you got to think, it's like Skype or it's like Discord. Like, they don't recognize who's actually in the match with us.
I hope not. Well, because it's all the same profiles. Like, it's still a
You
Nintendo
hope.
profile. It's not a separate community.
But I get that. But what I'm saying is I'm wondering if they have the ability, and I don't know because we don't have this thing. I'm wondering if it's an issue of the console can't tell the chat app quick enough who's actually in that match, and maybe it's causing issue, and maybe it's causing lag. So and they want this game to be spot on, and I guess they figure, hey, if you go and you talk to your buddies and you set up a chat with them, well, you could talk to them. That's no big deal.
I didn't even think of that.
And
I hope it's not. That's a technical limitation that I hope that they didn't, because they would have created it themselves by making that mobile app. Yeah. So it's not. It's their own fault, and that's why I hope that that's not the case.
And I wonder if, and I don't know, I'm wondering if the mobile app has to run on a totally different server than the game apps. And maybe that's where the miscommunication's coming from, where it just can't tell the mobile app. Obviously,
God, I hope not. But these are the worries of having a separate system. Yeah, like you're totally legitimate in those concerns.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where Nintendo, if you want to go back to basics, like if you want to go back to where Nintendo messed up with this, that mobile app, I feel, is where they messed up with this. They should have had party chat built into the Switch. Obviously. It should have been right there in the Switch, and that should have been the way to go. And that's ultimately, like, then I think it eliminates a lot of this nonsense that we're having right now, where people are pointing fingers and this and that, and they're so upset about Splatoon, they're not looking at the big picture. The big picture is they dropped the ball with voice chat overall and how it's being handled. When you go, now that we're in a mobile app situation, first off, you have to have a phone or something, a tablet.
Well, that's
some
fine.
Sort, you know,
I'm actually gonna give a thumbs up to. I think they're onto something with the mobile app. I'm not totally against this idea. I think that what you're saying is correct, where they should have had something caked into the console.
Yes.
And that the phone app would appear more like what Xbox and PlayStation do, where they've gotten a companion app that does basically the same thing. Yeah. But the reason I say that they're onto something is because I would so rather interact with my phone and say, like, there's Bobby, tap on him, start the chat. Like, that I think sounds way easier than going, I gotta hit the Xbox menu button, I gotta go over, I gotta start party. Like, it's not that easy. And interacting with a console UI versus a phone, like, basically just, it's kind of like when you make a website mobile friendly. Yeah. Like, they're making party chat mobile friendly, which should, in essence, make it more user friendly. It should make it easier for us to interact with our friends. So I think they're onto something. They're starting in a totally different place. It could build on it. It's easy to hate on things, and I'm just gonna, like, even throw myself under the bus because I've been hating on ARMS this whole time. In theory, it shouldn't work, but it works. I've just been kind of wowed by the Switch altogether, and I should be switching over. I should be moving from my pessimistic Nintendo fan to maybe they're earning a little bit of trust. Yeah, maybe they've been doing certain things right these days. I'm thinking the same thing with Virtual Console. I'm optimistic about all the things that are coming, and it's because they nailed it with the Switch on the console side so much. I'm wondering, like, even the subscription. I'm not hating on that. I'm really curious to see what.
Well, that's where a lot of this is coming from, because a lot of people are now pointing at it and going like, well, if this mobile chat doesn't work, if this chat version, voice chat, doesn't work, and that's what they want us to pay for, well, then that's nonsense. I should be able to do whatever I want. And it's like, yeah, I guess you're right, but at the end of the day, like, you're missing the big picture. And I feel like, again, the big picture is they're not prepped for this properly. They're not a true tech company. They're basically buying their tech from other companies and then
switching our roles.
I know, and then baking it into into their consoles, and that's the big in the big grand scheme of things. That's where their downfall is. Like Sony and Microsoft, they do tech better than anybody in the world. Like, Microsoft is nailing it when it comes to this stuff. They've been doing this for years. Like, so it's a no-brainer for them. But they struggle with the games, you know, where Nintendo doesn't struggle with the games. They nail it.
This is why we need all of them, everybody. Yeah. This is why a single platform will never work. This is why we need this. And even as I say, like, as optimistic as I am to see what Nintendo does with this mobile platform and think that, like, it's going to offer some intuitive interaction with the system, I'm already hearing people screaming in my head, what about when my phone runs out of batteries?
Yep. And I'm sorry, it's a harsh reality.
That is that does suck.
It's going to happen, and be prepared for it because, it is what it is. So, I think you just need to start thinking outside the box now of how you're going to be prepared for all this stuff. You're definitely going to run out of battery life and all that. And I think about yesterday we were on Skype calls. Like I had my phone plugged into my computer, charging it as I was plugged in, and we were on Skype. Like that, to me, that's how mobile chat's going to be for the most part.
But the opportunity too is like, what if, and I don't think Nintendo would ever do this, and we're kind of getting a little off track here and I apologize, but I have really enjoyed video chat while playing games. What if that's part of, I would really like to see Nintendo do more than just the audio, but it would be really cool to engage your phone's camera so that you can see each other.
I agree.
That really gets into what people are really enjoying about streaming. It's nice to not just see somebody's gameplay, but to see their reactions.
Yeah.
And it feels like you're there with them.
Yeah.
That would be a really cool surprise up Nintendo's sleeve. And if I ran Nintendo, I would definitely do that.
Yeah.
All while considering battery life is going to be a tough one. But to give that Skype experience, which is funny, that's how many Nintendo fans have been experiencing online play lately is through Skype.
Yeah.
Give video chat, man. Make it more than just voice chat. Let's do it.
I agree. So that is all.
That is all.
Thank you guys for listening to us. iTunes, Google Play, Acast,
Broke your brain.
Dayspace.com.
Dayspace.
Yes. And WeTheNerdy.com. Thank you, Andrew, for everything you do for us. Wholeheartedly appreciative of that. Go check out WeTheNerdy.com when you get a chance. You can follow the show on Twitter at If We Ran Nintendo. Follow Sean Capri, Sean like Connor, Capri like the pants on Twitter. Follow me at Nintendo Gurus. That is all. See me later.
Whoa, 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 Bobby. Bobby pauses, just finished his podcast with Sean Capri. Do, 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 do. You can cue music if you want. We're just fading out to the music that Bobby chooses after this stupid song that plays for arms. I can't believe it's in my head so much. And Bill Turner tweets the words, and it's really funny. Do, 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 do. Whoa! It's like a 6-year-old wrote it, Bobby. It's like they don't even know. They don't even need words. They're just like, hang on, I got something. It's just like whoa, whoa. That's it. Yes, whoa.
You're messed up. You are nuts.
Hey.